They don't target the weak. That's the first thing you need to understand about manipulation. The people who do it well, not the obvious ones, not the clumsy ones, the ones who are genuinely good at it, they go after the intelligent, because the intelligent are easier. Not in the way you'd expect, not because smart people are naive or careless, but because intelligence, untrained, becomes its own blind spot. And a blind spot in a sharp mind is worth more than a clear view in a dull one. This is what no one tells you. Most conversations about manipulation focus on the victim's weakness. Emotional instability, insecurity, low self-worth. And yes, those are real entry points. But they're not the only ones. They're not even the most common ones. The entry point that takes down intelligent people is different. It's their confidence in their own judgment. The first truth. Intelligence creates overconfidence in reading people. Here's the thing about smart people. They've been right about things before. Many times. They've analyzed situations, made predictions, called things correctly before anyone else could see them. And that track record builds something in them. A quiet certainty, a trust in their own perception. That trust becomes a weapon in someone else's hands. When a manipulator studies you before they approach you, and the skilled ones always do, they're not looking for your weaknesses in the traditional sense. They're looking for your certainties. What do you believe about yourself? What narrative do you run about your ability to read people? Because if they can confirm that narrative in the first few interactions, you will lower your guard completely. You'll think, I assessed this person. I found nothing threatening. And that conclusion will feel earned. It wasn't. The manipulation didn't start when you were suspicious. It started when you stopped being suspicious because you were satisfied with your own read. The trap was set in the moment of your confidence, not in the moment of your doubt. The second truth. Smart people rationalize what they should question. There's a particular move that only intelligent people make. When something feels off, but they can't immediately identify why, they explain it away. They construct a reason. They run the math in their head and decide, this is explainable. This makes sense. I'm probably overthinking it. Ordinary people feel uncomfortable and stop. Smart people feel uncomfortable and reason themselves back into comfort. That's the gap. A manipulator doesn't need to eliminate your suspicion. They just need to give you enough material to rationalize past it yourself. Give you a plausible explanation. Give you one moment of apparent honesty. Give you a context that makes the uncomfortable things seem logical. And then watch as your own intelligence finishes the job for them. This is not a flaw in intelligence. This is intelligence operating exactly as designed, identifying patterns, constructing explanations, resolving ambiguity. The problem is that it gets applied equally to real information and manufactured information. It cannot tell the difference from the inside. And that's the edge manipulators have always exploited. The third truth. Complexity is used as a weapon. Manipulation at its lowest level is blunt. Emotional outbursts, obvious guilt tripping, transparent flattery. Smart people can identify this instantly. They've read about it. They've seen it. They recognize the patterns. So the manipulation evolves. What you get instead is layered, multi-step, designed to look like something else entirely. It doesn't arrive wearing its own face. It looks like a nuanced conversation, a philosophical disagreement, a generous offer with one uncomfortable clause buried in the middle. It looks like someone simply being honest with you about a difficult truth, when in reality, that difficult truth is being used to redirect your thinking in a very specific direction. Smart people are attracted to complexity. They engage with it. They lean into it. They want to understand it fully before they dismiss it. And while they're doing that, while they're examining the complexity, turning it over, looking for the logic inside it, the thing has already happened. The position has already shifted. The agreement has already been reached, quietly, in the background. The complexity wasn't the content. It was the vehicle. You have probably been manipulated by someone you considered less intelligent than you. Sit with that for a moment. The fourth truth. Emotional debt is the real architecture. Intelligent people like to believe they make decisions based on logic. And sometimes they do. But the manipulator doesn't need to bypass your logic entirely. They just need to build enough emotional weight before the decision point that your logic operates under pressure. This is where emotional debt comes in. Before the ask, there's an investment: time, attention, generosity, patience. Not because the manipulator values the relationship, but because they are building a ledger. Every favor is a deposit. Every moment of warmth is a brick. And by the time they need something from you, the architecture is complete. Now your intelligence isn't working for you, it's working for them. Because your brain will construct a rational justification for what your emotional debt is already pushing you toward. The logic appears to lead you to the same place the emotion already decided. And so you believe you made a clear, rational choice. You didn't. You followed a line that was drawn long before the conversation started. The fifth truth. The mirror effect. The most sophisticated form of manipulation doesn't feel like being controlled. It feels like being understood. This is the part that stays with people the longest when they finally see it. Not the betrayal, not the loss. The memory of feeling seen. The memory of someone reflecting back everything you believed about yourself, your values, your way of thinking, your private sense of who you are. That reflection is manufactured. The manipulator is not a person to you. You are a person to them. And they study you with the same attention you might give to a problem you're trying to solve. What matters to you? What identity do you protect most fiercely? What do you need to believe about yourself to feel safe? Once they have that, they don't push against you. They become the only person who fully confirms you. And confirmation is addictive. Especially for people who have spent their lives being misunderstood. Especially for people who are used to being the most complex person in the room. When someone finally seems to match that complexity, it doesn't feel like danger. It feels like relief. That relief is the trap. The sixth truth. The exit becomes irrational. Here's what nobody discusses. Smart people don't just fall for manipulation, they stay in it longer. Because leaving requires admitting something that intelligent people find genuinely painful. That they were wrong. Not wrong about a fact. Wrong about a person. Wrong about their own ability to read a situation they were certain they had understood. The ego cost of that admission is enormous. So they negotiate with themselves. They find reasons why it's still defensible. They locate the moments where it wasn't manipulation, where it was genuine, where there was real connection. And those moments do exist. They were placed there deliberately, but they were real enough to feel. So the smart person builds a case for staying, a case for continuing to believe. And the manipulator knows this. They always know this. Because the exit being painful isn't a side effect. It's part of the design. The longer you stay, the more you've invested. The more you've invested, the harder the admission becomes. The harder the admission, the longer you stay. Intelligent people think this loop is something they can think their way out of. They can't. Not through analysis, not through understanding it better, not through one more conversation where they ask for honesty and actually expect to receive it. The only move is the one that requires no analysis at all. The cold calculation. Most people protect themselves from manipulation by watching for the wrong signals. They look for aggression, for obvious inconsistency, for things that feel bad. But the real protection isn't about what you feel. It's about what you verify. Who does this person become when they don't need anything from you? Who are they when the dynamic reverses, when you ask instead of them? Watch that version, not the version that was designed for you to see, not the reflection, the residue. There's always a residue. Because performance requires maintenance, and nobody maintains a performance indefinitely in every direction. The version that slips through in unguarded moments, in impatience, in contempt, in the way they speak about people who are no longer useful to them. That version is the real one. Trust that version, not the one that understands you better than anyone ever has. You now know the architecture, how the entry point is your confidence, how the rationalization is your intelligence, how the emotional debt is the structure, how the mirror is the most dangerous of all. But understanding the architecture of a trap and escaping the trap are two different things. Because the deepest manipulation doesn't leave marks you can point to. It leaves a version of you that slowly started making decisions that weren't yours and believed completely that they were. And the question that should be sitting in you right now, quietly, is this: which decisions were actually yours? Most people think about the people who manipulated them. The rarer, more uncomfortable thought. The one that actually changes how you move through the world. Is about the decisions you made afterward. The ones you made alone. The ones you were certain were finally clear. That question doesn't close easily. And it shouldn't. Because the next layer of this goes somewhere most people aren't prepared to look.